Hello there, dear listener. We hope you're enjoying this lovely discussion. If you're not already aware, this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio, a Pan-African Nationalist and Garveyite network committed to showcasing the rich and varied thoughts of African people. We have an exciting lineup of shows that we think you'll enjoy, including
the Bitter Medicine Podcast.
I think black people require too much buy-in. Like, we constantly have to sell black people on things that are beneficial to black people.
The Pro-Black Perspective Podcast.
I'm fearful that our people are not really studying how to get ahead, and we're kind of, continually staying behind.
The Harsh Reality Podcast.
To me, it don't matter. I think people are so dumbed down, it wouldn't matter what you reveal to them. They still are in the matrix. They're in the simulation. They're going to keep doing what they did. They lemmings. So to me, it don't matter, man.
The Learning Curve Podcast.
Sexual access has never given you economic empowerment. The only person who has ever been economically empowered by a sexual relationship is the wasp and his woman.
The Cathedra Cheek Show.
When we start rising up to fight for our own, I guarantee you they'll stop doing what they're doing. I guarantee you they would have let their brother go. They was waiting to see what black folks was going to do.
Brother Bakari Podcast.
Black people love to claim folks that hate them, right? They're a slave master, and they are ashamed of who they really are.
The Forecast Radio.
Like, if you pray to the same deity as, like, your enemy, and that God blesses your enemy more than you may want to reconsider who you're praying to,
And Tanzan, African Mind.
Africans generally are welcoming of everyone. Sometimes, to my consternation, I think that they should be less, welcoming.
If you love our podcast network, we would be grateful if you could rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out our website at www.kwazradio.com for more information. Thank you for tuning in. And now, back to the program.
All right. Peace, fam. You're tuning into the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. I'm out here in Tanzania. Enjoying the weather. Just spent some time with my children. We were at a pool, and I was reminded. I didn't upload the video, but I was reminded of once upon a time when black folk were like, man, other people won't allow us in our pool. And, even when I heard that complaint, I was like, well, just build your own pool. And, out here in Africa, I don't know who built the pool. I imagine it was the black people, but I don't know. Either way, it looked like they owned it. You know what I mean? So we're just going to look through the pro-black compendium, honestly. Not because I want to, but more so because I don't want to just talk without any sort of, let's say, boundaries. That said, I do want to talk about this one thing. Let me see who's here. Kofi's here. Greetings to Kofi. Greetings to Kofi. I do want to talk about one thing, though. What I want to talk about is the rise of private individuals. And whether or not private individuals can liberate a continent. And what would that look like? And so right now, I'm dealing with, one major problem, right? And that's the problem of how to accumulate even more capital, okay? A lot of times we will hear people talk about capitalism and communism. And in fact, let me change the background while we're talking. This is my books. A lot of times, and we're looking at the book on the left, the upper left, Pro-Black Compendium. check out all the books if you can. But what I hear people talk about, no, one of the problems that I've come across is just this idea of how to accumulate capital. You know, because realistically speaking, if you're trying to elevate Africa, right, you have to be serious about the accumulation of capital. And I know some people, that doesn't sound right to them. But, you know, when I was in the West and I was studying Western philosophy, you know, one of the Western philosophers you study is Karl Marx, right? And Karl Marx will tell you, hey, socialism is an advanced stage of capitalism, okay? Socialism is another stage, is the stage after capitalism, right? Now, of course, you might say, well, Maoism, you know, tells you can skip capitalism and go straight to socialism. That's a fair point too. But what I'm telling you is you have to have the industries in place, okay? You have to have the industries in place. And if you don't have the industries in place, where are you as a people? Okay, where are you as a people? You know, we talk about dialectical materialism. We talk about using materials. Oh, sorry. We talk about how materials influence historical trends, historical patterns, the pathway in the future. If we do not develop ourselves industrially, okay, if we don't develop ourselves industrially, we are not going to be developed. You know, at the end of the day, it is all about technology. That's what it is about. That's what the human experience is about, technology. It's about warfare, winning wars, but also if you're trying to have an easier life in this environment, in this natural environment, you have to utilize technology. Okay? And you know, the fact that you're listening to me, I'm in Tanzania. As far as I know, most of you are not. Okay? I don't even know if anybody in Tanzania is listening to me, but most of you are not. But you can hear me live and direct. Okay? Why? Because you're leveraging technology. You live in a house. What is that? Technology. So I really want you to get a grasp of that, because if we're trying to advance as a people, we have to be serious about the accumulation of capital and really the accumulation of technology. Okay? So let's get back to this book. We're just going to start reading some stuff. Mostly, I really want to talk about this technology thing, about this capital thing. But we're just going to, you know, put some reading in our way and see if we see anything that's interesting. So we start off with this quote. This was the Pro-Black Compendium. It was 8 weeks. So I don't know if it was like a year, could have been 2 years. I met up every week with some locals in New York City, right? A lot of them went on to do some really good things, okay? If you go to some of those, you know, podcast pages, you'll see some of the people who I used to meet with, you know? So it's very, very critical that you meet up with people and go over some philosophy. So Pro-Black Compendium helps with that. Of course, the greatest philosophy you're going to get is from Uangalifu. You know, the Pro-Black Compendium is written by Pan-Africanists who never went to Africa. Okay? You know, I'm talking about myself, obviously, but a Pan-Africanist who never went to Africa, and, you know, he read a lot of books, but he hasn't been. And Uangalifu was written by the same Pan-Africanist who actually lived in Africa for a while. So that's there's a big distinction. You know, the Pro-Black Compendium was written by a single guy, and Uangalifu was written by a married guy. You know. All right, but let's keep going. He says, look, in 1916, Jesse Washington was lynched. An estimated 15,000 whites watched him get beaten, castrated, and burned alive. One even wrote his mother, "This is the barbecue we had last night. My picture is to the left with a cross over it. Your son, Joe Myers," right? So I start off the 8 weeks with this particular quote because I want to put into context. You know, 100 years ago, okay, a little over 100 years ago, 15,000 people would get together and watch one man get beaten, castrated, and burned alive, and would even write their mothers, "Hey, had a good day." Okay, they would even take a photo and write their mother, "Hey, I had a good day." All right, 15,000 is a lot of people, and I want you to understand too that, how do you say it? I was doing these meetings maybe if I had a really excessive day. Okay, like if I had like occasional, like sometimes I would sit down with like 4 people, okay, or 4 other people, maybe 5 people, right? Like if it was like a really rare occasion, I sit down with 10 people, okay. I'm saying that to say, these white folk had 15,000 people. It's like a stadium, okay, and they got together to watch another man get beaten, castrated, and burned alive. All right? And it's really important. You know, we talk about how this is worship. You know, these white folk were pretty successful in 1916. Okay? These are the same white folk who would walk away from World War I victorious. Okay? They had a huge industrial output of rifles, you know, tanks, cruisers, ships, submarines, you know, you name it, right? And yeah, they understood how to organize, and I guess, you know, we can go to the Kwame Ture quote, honestly, because this is all, you know, all organized in a certain way. It says there's no such thing as an inferior people. There are oppressed people, and they're not oppressed by superior people. They are oppressed by people who are better organized than they are. The reason why the Ku Klux Klan terrorizes us is because they are organized. They have meetings every week, and their members go to the meetings. They discuss racist ideology. They internalize it, and then they mobilize it. They even make uniforms for that. Not many of us can say we go to meetings every week for the people. Again, I want you to get this, you know? That 15,000 people coming together to watch somebody get beaten, castrated, and burned alive is not coincidental. Okay? It's not coincidental. It's not a matter of, oh, wow, you know, we just all have to be outside that day. Not that, you know, white people don't go outside at the same time, but it wasn't that. It was, hey, I'm going to call up so-and-so. I'm going to call up so-and-so. I'm going to call up so-and-so. And they called up so-and-so. Okay? That's what it is. Let me see if I can put this on my phone so that I can you know, follow the chat, if there is a chat, you know, if there is a chat. But that's what we have to come to terms with. Okay, so we got Kofi telling us facts. You started out strong. I appreciate it, Kofi. And what's interesting is this is like a 10-year-old document, you know, when I wrote this, not even when I did the Pro Black Compendium, but like before the Pro Black Compendium, I was doing these meetings, right? What I want to say is that, now, what I would say is that I kind of changed my look on these things, you know? Kwame Ture says, oh, we're an oppressed people. I don't talk about us being oppressed. Okay? Again, you know, during this period of my life, you know, yeah, I was arguing with the oppressed versus unoppressed, but what I want to say is this. A lot of us are, in the West, displaced. Okay? We're displaced. We are definitely out-organized, but we're out-organized because we are in somebody else's country. Okay? We're the Chinaman in Japan. You know? We're the Chinaman or the Chinese man in Japan. We're the Ukrainian in Russia. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? You're just not where you're supposed to be. You know what I mean? And it's like, hey, look, you're a Ukrainian in Russia, right? You're going to be out organized. You understand? And if the people don't like you, and you know, you talk about why is the Ku Klux Klan, you know, terrorizing us? Oh, because they're better organized. Yeah, they're better organized, but they're terrorizing you because they are white and they're in a white nation and you're not white. You know, it's not your nation. You get what I'm saying? So the you know, like I said, I don't really vibe with Marx, obviously. But one of the things that Marx says, which is really, I can't remember the exact quote verbatim, but it's something along the lines of, and I put this in my future books, but something along the lines of, like the state has a monopoly on violence, right? So the Ku Klux Klan is able to operate. So the Ku Klux Klan terrorizes us. We agree with that, right? So therefore, it's a violent institution, right? But how is it a violent institution when the state is supposed to have a monopoly on violence, right? If the state, that means that the state, it basically means the Ku Klux Klan is the arm of the state. Not to say that nobody can have violence without being the arm of the state, but, you know, to do it so openly, to do it so brazenly, to do it so, how do you say, basically, in another way of saying this, if a group of people were terrorizing citizens, right, the state would see it in their best interest to stop them, unless it endorsed their terrorism. Okay? So even like here in Tanzania, if I was going around kidnapping Tanzanians, if I was going around, you know, beating Tanzanians, if I was going around, you know, stealing from Tanzanians, right? The state would organize to try to stop me because I'm making the place unsafe, I'm making businesses worse, I'm doing, you know, so on and so forth. But if the state didn't, then obviously I'm working with the state. You see what I'm saying? So you know, we go back to Kwame Ture, because I like what he's saying. He's like, hey, look, you're an oppressed people. That's why this is happening. Wait, hold on. You're a displaced people. You're a people who are in a country you shouldn't be in. And that was the message of the Ku Klux Klan. Now you might say, well, why the hell do you have the same message as the Ku Klux Klan? Right? And, you know, it's a fucking good question. No, but why you would have is to say that, and this is the harsh reality, right? This is the, you know, shout out to D-Web, right? But this is the truth of it, right? Sometimes you just have to come to terms with what is real versus what is imaginary. You know? What is real is that, how do you put it? Basically, the world was separated into continents. Let's just pretend. We'll just use imagination, actually, right? The world was separated into continents. People on different continents are separate people, and they should be separate. And that's I mean, like you said, it's like I just said, it's the message of the Klan, yeah. But it's like why, like maybe that's like, I mean, I don't know how else to say it. You know what I mean? Like if you want to live in peace with another people, it's just not gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like it's just not gonna happen. And because it's not going to happen, you're getting in a whole bunch of problems because you want it to happen. Why you want it to happen, I don't know. But you're getting into a whole bunch of problems because you want it to happen. All right? I mean, I wish maybe somebody could drop a comment, maybe help out or maybe see what I'm not making clear. But we're going to just keep going. So we have the next one, Mr. Thomas Sankara. He says, without patriotic political education, a soldier is only a potential criminal. Okay? Without patriotic political education, a soldier is only a potential criminal. Again, you know, what is patriotic political education? You know, one of the things, in fact, this is what I really wanted to show you guys. I totally forgot. I'm going to see if I can find it. So I have this other book. Let me see if it comes up. No, it doesn't come up when I click it. Let's see if we can find it. My keyboard is really loud. I can't remember if it's Cabral or Sankara, but I'm going to search Sankara in my book and see if I can find it. Let's see. We're searching through. We're searching through yeah, it's Sankara. So we're gonna switch books for a second. We're going to the Book of Power. Okay. For some reason, it's not showing up in my. I'm trying to share you guys the book. Let's see if I can find it. So that's my documents. I don't want to show you that. That's my thing. We're going to switch over to... Okay, Kofi says you're clear so far. Thanks, Kofi. Where is this book? I'm trying to switch over to another book, but it's not allowing me to. So let's see. Oh, maybe this. Okay, it's not allowing me to. But I'll just read it to you guys. So it's called The Speech He Was Set to Give Before Being Assassinated, right? And it's a short speech. Yeah, actually, I think I have to show it to you guys. The only question is, how do I switch to another thing? We have Bitter Medicine Podcast who said peace, peace. We have BBN, Black Business Network, saying peace and Black African power. I'm so mad at this thing. I have to figure out how to share the screen, but it's not sharing. So basically, you have Thomas Sankara, right? And in the pages, you'll see he talks about how there are people in his organization who are showing signs, like basically he's telling them, hey, look, cease and desist, right? Oh no, here it is. Damn, I wish I could show you guys. But it says, we must eliminate troublemakers from our ranks. All revolutionary social struggles contain fraudulent individuals infiltrating their movements. Our current situation and long-term situation must be changed to eliminate them. Our revolution will advance with its purification. We will not lose anything by this emotional action. The eventual difficulties will pale compared to what we are currently experiencing or the suffering which our people are currently undergoing. I will propose sanctions. Okay? So he's giving a speech before he's like, hey, look, I'm noticing some people who are doing some bad things in our organization, and I'm going to propose some sanctions. Actually, you know what I can do? Let's give me 2 seconds. I'm going to search this on Google, right? And then, let's give me 2 seconds. Hold on a second. Yeah. I'm going to search this on, because basically I found this article on like Google or something, right? So yeah, I'm going to show you guys. That'll be probably the easiest thing. I'm going to switch screens. Let me just see if it loads. Only because it's pretty important that we share this. So again, I'm telling you, it's in the Pro Black Compendium, but you can also look at this online. Now, of course, the internet's really slow. All right, we're just going to keep advancing. So we're going to just keep advancing because this is taking too long. But it's this whole idea of a patriotic... Now, this is something that I really like. Again, if I can go back in time and have my meetings, right, I might have a different message. I might even not include these things because some of them I can't even agree with right now. Because one of the things when we talk about a patriotic political education or a soldier is only a potential criminal is the reality that you have to be, like, if you're talking about power, you're talking about becoming the state, you have to start talking about being violent. Okay? And Thomas Sankara is saying, hey, look, I notice we have some troublemakers. I'm going to propose some sanctions, right? It's, I don't want to be, dismissive, but it's cute. The trouble is it got him killed. Because in the real world, it's kill or be killed. So this is the ThomasSankara.net, the speech he would have given on October 15, 1987. Okay? The speech he would have given. Context is that he on the evening of October 15, where he was to give this speech, indeed, shortly before this, he had asked all activists to leave the UCB, political party which contained many people conspiring in the manner Thomas Sankara describes in his speech. Basically, I don't know. You guys can pull out your calendar and see what day he was killed. Okay? But the impression is that he was killed before he gave this speech, because he was like, hey, so it says another note is that this discourse disproves the popular front claims that was preparing to assassinate Blaise Compaoré and his companions. The photo of the text, as it was handwritten, exists, and there can be no doubt the speech originated from Thomas Sankara. And we have seen this, and journalists recognize the handwriting himself. Basically, they're saying he was not trying to assassinate the guy who assassinated him. And, that's a praise for him. But it's like, well, Burkina Faso, now it's a great nation, right? Shout out to Traoré. But Burkina Faso was set back because of this, this sentiment. Hey, you have to have a real political education. And a real political education is go and kill your assassin. That's real political education. Go and kill your assassin. So, here you guys have the speech. You can check out the link. You could just look up, just pick any sentence. The sentence I searched was, we must eliminate troublemakers from our ranks. So you just type that in quotation marks and it will come up, right? But you could see he's like, hey, look, we have these untrustworthy, cover all essential behavior, unworthy of revolutionary activists, but none will oppose them for fear of being suspected of trying to oppose us. This is opportunism, and avoid losing activists, especially newcomers, and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, look, I'm going to go and give this speech. And before he could even give this speech, I propose that we go to the masses to demonstrate our cohesion by holding meetings, denouncing, condemning these divisionary currents, ridiculing them as they deserve. Those who until now extol the more or less goodwill, the virtues of the revolution. It's urgent that we go out, that we talk, that we restore our people. It is urgent. He's like, we have to show a united front, a cohesive front. We have to be cohesive and show that we're together, that we are one people. And it's like, and we must eliminate these people from our ranks, tell them to get lost, whatever. We must sanction them, and then they go around and kill him before he could even do the speech, because people were telling him, hey, man, you got to move a little bit more quickly. And if you don't move quicker, they're going to kill you. They're going to kill you. And sure enough, they did. And so, I'm bringing this up because, we just read about Thomas Sankara, right? But I'm bringing this up to say, when you talk about, then Thomas Sankara tells you, hey, we got to worry about, a real political education, right? Patriotic political education, or your soldier's only a potential criminal. You're damn right. But a real political education is, that's why look, I'm not really into Europeans or Asians, but I do, but you guys hear me sometimes quote some socialism, right? And the reason why I do is because I mess with Stalin and I mess with Mao. Okay? I mess with Stalin, I mess with Mao, because both of those dudes were known as badasses. They were men. They were known as badasses. Okay? They were known as badasses. And what I mean is that, Stalin says, hey man, if you want to make an omelet, you have to crack a few eggs. And I live with that. I'm like, yo, I mess with that. And Mao, he did the Cultural Revolution. If you don't know what the Cultural Revolution was, it's basically he's going to gather up the Ascati and put them in a blender. Now, he didn't put them in a blender, but you get what I'm saying? He's going to what I'm saying is that he understood the assignment. The assignment is we're taking over the state. The state monopolizes violence. Right? You got people conspiring. You don't say, hey, man, look, let's get together and, have a cohesive front. And, you say, look, off with his head. Because, look, if you don't understand what I'm saying, it's that Thomas Sankara, you see how Traore is so amazing. He's so good. He's so good. He's so great. But Thomas Sankara was a good man too. But it was that naivete that we could, kumbaya our way towards, African liberation that messed us up. That messed us up. We got IC3, CSI is in the building. Say greetings. Bit of Medicine says, whoop that trick is from Mao. I don't know which Mao you're talking about. I was like the Mao. But yeah, the Mao. I mess with the Mao too, obviously. Frederick Douglass says, the doctrine that submission to violence is the best cure for violence did not hold good as between slaves and overseers. Whoever was whipped oftener was whipped easiest. And this is again, you have to realize, this is why, what we have to realize, and I was telling my friend this, right? One of the reasons why I don't like religion or the Abrahamic religions, because the Abrahamic religions, they teach you that you're not an animal. You're better than an animal. You're close to divine. There are the animals, then above them, it's you, and the only thing above you is a deity. Okay, you're closer to a deity, or you're part divine, all that kind of stuff, it sounds good. But I would rather tell you that you're an animal. I would rather tell you the truth. You're an animal. And why do I want to tell you an animal? Because if you study animals, you'll better understand you and the human condition. Okay? You study the dogs. Okay? How do you control a dog? You slap it in its mouth. Okay? You slap it across the face. A lot of us are controlled by violence. And so when you understand that we are controlled by violence, right? Because even you talk about, Frederick Douglass and slaves and overseers, you realize why were we doing the cotton? Why were we doing the masonry or the iron work or the smelting or the nursing or the thing? Because these white boys were violent. You understand? These white boys understood how to control other people. And they did it through violence. And I don't know if I have the quote here. I feel like I do. There's a quote. I know I'm skipping ahead. But there's this quote from, I think it was John Edward Bruce. Let me see if it's here. Okay, so it's not even in this one today. Oh, yeah, here it is. Is it this one? No, it's not this one. It's a good quote, but it's not this one. We're gonna just read it anyway. We're gonna skip through this though. A strong nation has never in all its history voluntarily weakened itself by making weak races their successful rivals in the game for power. The game of violence, really. But there's this quote, I think it's John Edward Bruce. We're just gonna skip through, just because I'm really tempted to talk about it. Now, the way how this is organized is that you have 4 subjects, which is politics, economics, culture, and then you have ethics, right? Just like a catch-all for the 3 of them. And then you have the solutions to them, which is sociology, psychology, ecology, and ideology, right? But I think this will be in the solutions category for sociology, and I don't see it. But there's this quote, and he just says something along the lines of, these white boys are fortifying their bases. Okay, they're fortifying their bases. And this is John Edward Bruce. If I'm not mistaken, it's John Edward Bruce from 100 plus years ago, right? 120 years ago, something like that, or 150 years ago. John Edward Bruce preceded Garvey. Okay, so this is before Garvey. There was this, black American who was saying, "Hey, these guys are fortifying their bases while we're, dilly dallying." And I can't even find it. Let me see if I can find it. So, I think no, it's not this one. But although this is also an important thing to say, John Edward Bruce, he says, "We must organize and secure uniformity of utterance and action among the darker races, and to meet organized wrong with intelligently organized resistance." But again, I want to stress that, you gotta just keep it simple. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. Right? Right? But KISS basically means just say organized violence. You want to meet organized violence with organized violence. That's all it is. That's all it always ever was. Okay? This man was organized violence. That's why you did all that other stuff. You could say, "Hey man, he made me feel like, I was a piece of shit. He told me I wasn't a human." It wasn't that. It's always been about the question of violence. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna look for fortified. I like this quote. I want to find this quote. Okay, I like this quote. I want to find this quote. I don't see it. Okay, here you go. So this is here. He says, "While we have been asleep, they have been fortifying their strong cities and piling up ammunition to meet any attack upon their strong, darker races of the world. We may as well face fact as well as fancies." Okay? Reality as well as imagination. We may as well face reality as well as imagination. Okay? While we have been asleep, they have been fortifying their strong cities and piling up ammunition. This is John Edward Bruce before Marcus Garvey, okay? 150 plus years ago, saying they are fortifying and they are piling up ammunition, and we're sitting here asleep. Doing what? I don't know. I recently got more into watching, I'm not personally watching it, but I try to get my sons, because I'm telling you guys, violence is the word, right? This is the word that they don't want you to use, okay? The V word, right? They don't want you to use the V word. But violence is the controlling factor, okay? You say to yourself, how do you control, your kids? You slap them, right? But check this out. Why wouldn't you slap your kids? Because if you slap your kids in front of the wrong person, somebody's gonna slap you. You know what I'm saying? It's just that simple. Your kids, that the teacher tells you, "Hey man," the teacher tells the kid, "If your father slaps you, let me know." You understand? All of a sudden, you're not slapping your kid anymore, because you're controlled by violence too. But I really wanted you guys to see that. I'm gonna skip back. I'm gonna go back to the beginning, because I know some people are saying to themselves, "Man, this book's been on the market for 10 years and this book has been on the market for 10 years and I didn't buy it. But this guy's spoiling it for me." Like, spoiler alert. Yeah, it's not a spoiler. Let me see what the chat's saying. We got more greetings. Organized violence. Yes, I see 3 CS1 CSI. Yeah, organized violence. That's all it's always been. It's always been that, but we pussyfoot around it. Like I mean, no disrespect to Thomas Sankara, but you know what I mean? He's like, without patriotic political education. What does that mean? That's the potential criminal. What does that mean? The soldier is a part of organized violence. And so what you want to do when you talk about the qualities of a leader, the qualities of a good government, is you have to ask yourself, how do you want the violence to be organized? That's it. How do you want the violence to be organized? Organized against whom? Maybe the thieves. Maybe the crooks. That's it. But who do you want the violence to be organized around? But the state has organized violence. Why do you say that? Because, again, who are these freaking police officers? What are they doing? And again, So he's like, look, submission to violence. And this is the thing, too. Listen to me. What's submission to violence? Any country you go to, you are submitting to their violence. You know, I told you guys, I don't know if I told you guys this story actually, but I was recently at the border between Tanzania and Kenya. Unfortunately, I have to admit, I'm American, okay? When you're American, people want to exploit you, okay? That's just, it has nothing to do with you being American. It's more like, this is the reality of the world. People see an opportunity, okay? Like you see an opportunity in other people. If another person if I introduce to you, hey, or like even this, very, very, very casual, you know, you guys know I have a designer friend, right? She designs clothes, okay? I also recently took in my wife's niece, right? And so I introduced my wife's niece to my designer friend. And I just learned this, you know, just a few hours ago. My wife's niece wants to be a designer. So now she's looking at my designer friend as an opportunity, right? To get into the designing world, right? What I'm saying is that it's normal to look at other people as an opportunity because, you know, I'll put it this way, in fact. I just went out, took the kids out swimming. They, you know, 3 of them went swimming. 3 kids went swimming. Then we also, all of us ate food, maybe 5 meals. Okay? 5 meals and swimming for 5 hours, I think. I don't know. But, you know, for a long time, right? It cost me $34. Okay? $34 to feed 5 people and go swimming for 5 hours. Okay? What I'm saying is that you are an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? Like you're you know the currency that you command is just that much higher. You know, the amount of money you have is just that much greater that, yeah, the little bit that they're at, like some people are asking for $2, $4. You know, their version of exploiting you is, can I get $2? Can I get $4? And they're freaking satisfied with your $4. Now, of course, you know, off principle, you're like, I don't want to be exploited. I don't want to give you $4 for nothing, right? But like, yeah, that's a reality. Okay. Now, what I'm saying is this: you're at the border. These guys know you don't have political power. Okay, so then, you know, they were able to, and they know, no, sorry, better yet, I'll put it this way. They know that they can beat you in the game of violence. Okay, because they have their guns, and they know you don't. Okay, they have their guns, they know you don't. So they try to extort you, they try to, whatever. So these guys actually got me to, they commanded the bus to leave me, and I was pretty much stranded at the border. Now, of course, I used my you know, I was like, hey, look, I'm going to the freaking main office to, you know, report you, whatever, right? And then they felt in trouble because they were like, hey, the main office can fire me, can, you know, violently remove me from my work. You know, if I try to go to work after getting fired, they will violently remove me, right? So, you know, there was that. But my whole thing is that it's always been about violence. It's always been about violence. And you know, that's the reason why I don't like that's the reason why I don't really talk about the pro-black perspective. You know? And the pro-black companion. That's the reason why I don't really talk about the pro-black companion. Because at this time, I was kind of, you know, like if you look at one of the poems earlier, I'm like making fun of white folk, like, oh, you mastered violence, you know? Because they try to shame us and say, you guys are so violent. You guys are so violent. And, you know, I'm saying, hey, look, you guys are the most violent ones. How could you shame us when you're so violent? But it's like, being the most violent is a compliment. You understand? It's like, yeah, being the most violent is a compliment in this world where violence runs the world. I want you to understand that. You know, and we're talking real violence, you know? Because some people might say, because even this is a comment, this guy was just bragging about Floyd Mayweather or something, or Muhammad Ali, like them being capable or Mike Tyson, capable at winning you in a fight, that's a compliment, obviously, right? Oh, it's not. It's kind of a compliment, right? But check this out. I don't have the quote in this book, but there's this quote. Maybe I do, but there's this quote from this white guy, European. He's called Hilaire Belloc. Okay, allegedly he was an anti-imperialist, and so he's writing during the time of Africa's colonization, and he's quote unquote an anti-imperialist. So he's making kind of like a satirical argument as to like a satirical argument as to how imperialists sound. And he says something really profound. He says, no matter what happens, and I memorized this because it's so profound. He says, no matter what happens, we have got the Maxim gun and they have not. Okay? I'll repeat it. No matter what happens, we have got the Maxim gun and they have not. And so what this guy, he's trying to make fun of these white people, right? He's saying, and of course he's a white guy, but what he's saying is like, the European policy was, hey, I can give these guys weapons. I can give black people weapons. I can give them rifles and guns or whatever, but I'm not going to give them this machine gun. Okay? I will not, and I'll make sure that they do not have a machine gun. I'll make sure that they don't develop a machine gun. Because the reason why we can do what we're doing on this continent, remember, they're stealing human beings. They're stealing human beings. They're making mixed children. They are walking away. They're sending people into caves that are having cave-ins. They're sending children into caves that are having cave-ins. The way they can just walk over people in this continent. And you have to, you have to put it into perspective. You have, I don't know if you have a son. Well, let's say you have a son, right? For another man to come out of nowhere, to cross the ocean, and then tell your son, go into, and your young son, okay? Not your, old son, your young son. Tell your young son, go into a cave, okay? And bring me back some jewels. Right? It doesn't make any sense. He's making mixed children. Sometimes with young children themselves. Okay? He's doing this, and why can he do this? Because whatever happened, he has the machine gun. Okay? He has the machine gun. And now, of course, you can change that modernize that weapon. Right? It's no longer the machine gun you have to worry about. It's the nuclear bomb. Okay? And soon it's not even going to be the nuclear bomb. According to, some people are telling you, hey man, when artificial intelligence gets to a certain point, it's going to be that, no matter what happens, we have got this artificial intelligence and they have not. And you have to understand that white people understand this. Okay? There's you guys join the Discord. Obviously, join the Discord, because there's some people you can't talk about because it's for some reason, right? But I was reading this one guy, who you're not supposed to talk about, he has a struggle. Anyway, I'm reading this guy, and he's like, look, we do not want other nations to be industrialized, okay? It was already a mistake to let other Western nations be industrialized. We do not want other nations, like African nations, Asian nations, to become industrialized because then we will not be able to sell them products. Okay? This is not my opinion. This is the opinion of a dude with a struggle. Okay? What I'm saying is that he lays it out. He lays it out. All right? They are saying, no matter what happens, We have got the Maxim gun, and they have not. You know, and speaking of, Forecast is here. Shout out to Forecast. IC3 says violence runs the world. That's it. I think that's actually in my. I can't even show that book, but there is a early quote, early story by. I say it's by Queen Annie. Obviously, I wrote it, but it's from Queen Annie, where the title of it is "The World Runs on Warfare." You know, that's the title of the story. I wish I could show you guys, but apparently I can't. Yeah, apparently I can't. I don't know why, but it is what it is. Anyway, so shout out to Forecast. So what I'm saying is that, yeah, you have to come to terms with this whole violence paradigm, or the you know, like the other quote says, the world runs on warfare. If you don't understand that, you know, a lot of things are not going to be as clear as you want it to be. You know, you're going to say, hey, we're oppressed. You know, instead of, you're a part of a nation where, or even like, oh, sorry, so I was saying submission to violence. So again, the state is always the entity of violence. So everywhere you live, you are going to submit to violence. Okay? If you're in a small little village, the chief is the monopolizes violence. He says, hey, take them away. Hey, do this, do that. Unless you're in an anarchic situation where nobody has a monopoly, right? Somebody has a monopoly. That's what it is. And so you're always going to be submit yourself to violence. Okay? You're always going to submit yourself to violence. And you know, that's just the reality that you're in. So again, it's not a question of, are you going to, you know, it comes back to this, are you like are you in a hostile nation or not? You know, I'll put it this way, in fact. If you're, like, I remember one time I was in this meeting, like I told you, I had these meetings, and this brother was like, see, when I see a police officer, I walk my son over and tell him, you know, introduce him and show him that the police officer is a human and blah, 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 you know, and I make sure to tell him, hey, man, look, if this guy tells you to do anything, you know, you make sure you listen. And I was just like, when we were sitting there listening to this guy, we were like, this motherfucker's cooning, man. But, like, the reality is, he's right. You know, he's right. Because you're in this other man's nation, okay? And as long as you're in this other man's nation, he has, unless you're pretty damn organized, he has a lot better organized violence than you. And so unless you are organizing or organized, you're putting yourself in a position to be submissive to another man. Right? And not just any other man, but to a man who doesn't like you. And so you got to suck up and kiss ass. You know? IC3 says, does money trump violence? You know? What's interesting is that there's this quote from, and Kofi said no, right? But there's this quote from Machiavelli. Machiavelli says, you know, he says money and bread, like he's like the four things in war. I think I actually have it here. Oh, I don't have it in here. Oh man, I wish I had it. Let me see if it's in here. Yeah, here it goes. So this is in which one is this? Ethics. I don't have everything good in ethics. Men steal money and bread are the tendons of war. But of the four, the first two are more necessary. For men and steel find money and bread, but money and bread do not find men and steel. You know, it's the general rule of warfare. So he's saying, look, you know, so just to your question, does money trump violence? He's like, men and steel. That basically means the man with a gun can find money and find bread. But just because you have money and bread don't mean you can find men and the guns. Now again, you can use your money to find, you know, you can, like, honestly, in this day and age, you can, right? But you know, that's if you understand it. And you see right here, you see this is my African blood siblings core tenet. Organized justice defeats organized injustice. So this is organized, and opposing wrong makes a right. But the idea is organized violence defeats organized violence. Okay? Organized injustice is just the violence that you don't agree with. And organized justice is the violence you do agree with. But you have to understand it's always supposed to be, you were supposed to be violent. You get what I'm saying? You were supposed to be violent. Somehow, Wazungu made sure you weren't. And it's causing us all sorts of problems. Because again, you know, I told you, I messed with Stalin. I messed with Mao. Okay? Those were men who were violent. And this white man is gonna critique, you know, he's gonna give them criticism, and some of you are gonna agree with those criticisms. Like, oh man, you know, but the thing is that Stalin was, or the thing is that, you know, you won't want to go to one of those camps, or, you know, or Mao, you know. He's gonna try to convince you, but then you see where Russia was and where it is today, where China was and where it is today, and you figure out, oh yeah, they had to do that. Because, you know, like right now I'm in Tanzania. Some people might argue, hey, China was behind Tanzania at one point, recently. But you wouldn't even believe it. If you go to China right now, you wouldn't believe it. Okay? Let me go to the comments, though. Those in power do not use violence directly. They do not carry guns. Yeah, well, the thing is this. That's why I said organized violence, right? The president of the United States, or even president anywhere really, and this is why it's so important. You know, that's why I said, you know, it's like, oh yeah, Floyd Mayweather could definitely, you know, kick somebody's ass, sure. But it's really who has the technology, who has the keys to the organization, to the organized violence. You know, it's like the king doesn't need to carry around, like the king does have a sword, obviously, hopefully, right? But it's not so much that you're not really worried about the king as a swordsman. You're worried about the fact that the king has his knights, he has his assassins, he has his this, he has his that. You know what I mean? That's what you're worried about. So the person in power, you know, like again, Floyd, like we talk about Mike Tyson, dangerous guy. They arrested Mike Tyson. You know, how do you arrest Mike Tyson? You know, how do you arrest Mike Tyson? And these white people do it like that. You know, like this white man, like I said, man, these guys stole, I can't remember, it's like millions of black people from the continent of Africa. How? How could you do that? And not how as in, you know, why, but how could you, like, logistically do that? Like, what kind of organization do you have that you could just steal millions of people from another country, from another continent, and put them into another, put them on another continent altogether, separated by a huge body of water? Okay? It's not that you personally have to have that ability. It is you're a part of an organization. Okay? You're a part of an organization. And, you know, the nation is an organization. Now, let me see if I can continue with it. Let me actually look at the comments, because really I didn't want to really go through this reading. But let's see. Everyone can't do everything. You can't make the money and use the guns. We out here. That's a debate I had. Have you seen the movie Crash? When Terrence Howard bowed down to the police, but his wife called him weak. I said at some point we could be so submissive like a girl. My friend said it's more important to survive and get home. Yeah. I mean, the issue is you're in this other guy's country. You know, if you go to, let's say, all right, matter of fact, I'm here. Let's say I go to Botswana, right? I'm supposed to bow to the freaking police. I mean, if the police tells me get up, I'm supposed to get up. It doesn't change because you're black and he's white. You understand? You're in a country, you're in a state, the state has its employees. And it says, the thing is that, like, in America, it's a law. You're supposed to obey a police officer. Like, that's the law. You get arrested for disobeying a police. I don't know I gotta look it up. Again, I don't know what kind of, let's see, the law, I'm gonna look it up. But like, code of conduct, full duty imposed by the law, shall all times, there's a code of conduct for things. Or the legal requirement, they can stop anyone anywhere. Let's see, here we see refusing to assist. All right, so I can't even, the right to disobey. Yeah, I'd have to look up. But basically, there is like police officers. Police officers have this thing. I don't remember what it's called. Again, I'm not in America, so I don't really care. You know what I mean? Like I'm just telling you that, like, if you are in America, you're in a position that you're in a disadvantageous position. Let's just put it that way. He said they can be submissive. Yeah, I understand making it home, but at the rate will always be submissive. It's like wanting to protest without making trouble. Yeah, no, but that's the thing. It's like that's why I'm focusing on this quote. It's like you are going to be submissive. You understand? Like, unless you are the leader, you're the follower. You know? Or you could be enemy of the state. And the thing is that the state has shown, or most states show, that, okay, if you want to be enemy of the state, that's fine. Right? We'll visit your funeral. You know what I mean? Like, we'll visit your gravesite. We'll put flowers on your gravesite. That's the reality of the world. The reality of the world. And, the reason why I'm saying this too, I think I read it last year. I was reading Lenin, okay? So I'm reading Lenin, okay? Not even like whatever. And he's talking about police brutality, okay? So Lenin, you know what I mean, is talking about police brutality. So that just tells me everything I need to know about how the world is, okay? Because Lenin has nothing to do with anything that we are going through. So instead, what he's speaking about is the universal condition of man, either the universal condition or the Western condition. But either way, if you are in the West, it might as well be the universal condition. Because if you're in the West, it's the Western condition. And it's just the condition that you're in. Again, if Lenin is talking about police brutality, yeah, you as a black person are gonna get it far worse. And I think I actually have that quote here. Something. Let me see if I find it. Again, we used to read this every week, so that's why I remember them. It says, "If crocodiles eat their own eggs, what would they do to the flesh of a frog?" Okay? If crocodiles eat their own eggs, what would they do to the flesh of a frog? If you understand, and I was supposed to read that soon. But if you understand that this white boy is going to have police brutality on Russians from other Russians, you're damn right your black ass is going to get police brutality from a white man. Okay? You come here in Nigeria. I'm not in Nigeria, but you come here in Nigeria, you will get police brutality from Nigerians. So you damn right your black ass is going to get police brutality from these white boys. Like, for some reason, you're expecting to be treated better as a black person by white people than black people are treated by black people, than white people are treated by white people. It just doesn't even add up. Again, if the crocodile eats their own eggs, the crocodile is not going to treat you well if it eats its own eggs. If this white boy is beating his own people, he's going to beat your ass. Okay? If you show him your ass. But anyway, we're gonna keep going. So it says, if Africans could abandon the idea of leadership and instead stimulate a large number of the race to take up definite tasks and sacrifice their time and energy in doing these things efficiently, the race might accomplish something. The race needs workers, not leaders. Such workers will solve the problems which race leaders talk about and raise money to enable them to talk more and more about. When you hear an African talking, then always inquire as to what that African does or has done for the race. Oratory and resolutions do not avail much. If they did, the African race would be in a paradise on earth. It may be well to repeat here the saying that elders talk of what they have done, the youth of what they are doing, and fools of what they expect to do. The African race has a rather large share of the last mentioned class. So again, it's always great to sit down with African people and go over what the ancestors have said. This is Carter G. Woodson, okay? Carter G. Woodson wrote this is actually from Miseducation of the Negro. Really, really good book, okay? But I want you to see this again. What is leadership? This is the thing. This is the problem, in fact. You see, we think a leader is somebody who talks and raises money to talk more and more, okay? That's where we always had our problem. What is the word of the day? The V word, violence. A leader is someone who controls violence, let's say, or has, I don't want to say monopoly on violence, but somebody who uses violence. Okay? That's what a leader is. Now, you could buy into the Christian rhetoric, oh no, you got to be nonviolent, That's not a leader. Again, we were talking about Sankara. You got to talk about Kwame Nkrumah. Did we read Kwame Nkrumah earlier? No, Kwame Ture. I think maybe we're going to read Kwame Nkrumah now. All right, but he's in this document. Kwame Nkrumah, he messed up. Okay, I tell you guys this all the time, but he messed up. Patrice Lumumba won the election in the Congo. And he won the election for, I want to say presidency or something like that, right? His runner-up lost the election, okay? So what did Kwame Nkrumah say? He said, look, what about for the good of peace and stability, you take on the prime minister position, and that guy take on the presidency. All right, and this is not my opinion. This is what Kwame Nkrumah tells us. Okay, maybe I might have to find the quote so you guys can see. I think I have the book. By the way, like I said, you guys can go to the Discord and you get some free books. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to sign into my Google Drive. For some reason, I'm not signed in. All right. Shit. Now it's asking me to verify this computer. Hold on a second. Hopefully you guys can't see my screen. This thing is showing all sorts of bullshit, All right, so I'm gonna try to go into my Google Drive and see if I can find this Kwame Nkrumah quote, because it's very important that we understand how ignorant from even our most brilliant ancestors set us back. Okay? Because again, it's always been about violence. It's always been about violence. So one of the problems is that even though I have a whole bunch of free books, I do not have The Challenge of the Congo as a free book. It looks like. Let me just see. What book is this? Let me see what book is this. Because I have I don't have Challenge of the Congo as a free book. So I can show you, let me just make sure, I can show you guys some of these books I have just to show you, what you're possibly missing. And again, I don't really, there you go. I don't really particularly, I haven't read everything, obviously. So these are my Kwame Nkrumah books. Unfortunately, the one on, the Challenge of the Congo is not here. I have the paper copy. But one thing he says in the Challenge of the Congo is he told, now again, look it up yourself because my memory is not that great, but he told Patrice Lumumba, hey, look, what about you take the prime minister, this guy takes the presidency. And when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, you know? All right, so why was that bad? Because the president had the what's the thing in America where the president has the military? What's it called? The president has the something like I don't remember the phrase. Let me look it up. The president, something about president has the freak, man. What was that thing called? Basically, something about how the president can basically do wars. Let's just say that. Commander in chief. There you go. The president is the commander in chief, right? Yeah, Kofi said the Secret Service. Yeah, the president is the commander in chief. What does that mean? Is that they are the highest authority in the U.S. military. They're the highest authority in the Navy, in the Army, in the whatever. They are the commander in chief. Okay, and it was the same in the Congo. This the guy who won the presidency and he ends up killing Lumumba, right? He was the commander in chief, and so basically, whoever controls the violence controls the community. It's really that simple. You go back to the freaking thing, what's his name said? Machiavelli. You have the men, whoever has the men in steel has the money and the bread. Okay, whoever has the men in steel has the money and the bread. And we know this. We go through our lives talking about, man, I wish we didn't have gang violence in our communities. Or I wish I didn't know about gang violence. What is gang violence? It is men in steel. And if you find yourself in the middle of the night in a certain community and you are not also a part of another, if you're not part of a gang, right? You find yourself listening to these young men. If they decide to speak to you. If I'm walking, I'm you call me intellectual. I have money, I have bread. Okay? I don't have, I don't want to say I don't have money, I don't have steel, right? But what I'm saying is that, you go into the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time, right? And you will find that there are men there who have men in steel. And with that men in steel, they can get your money and bread. And they'll give you an ultimatum. They'll say you can I can take it the easy way, or I can take it the hard way. And you'll tell them, look, man, let's be reasonable. Take it the easy way. You know what I'm saying? You'll tell them, let's be reasonable. sudden he's your freaking leader. And the reason why I bring this up is to say, you don't have leaders right now. Or if you do have leaders, your leaders are white people. In the West, I'm talking. You know? Umar Johnson is not your leader. Because he doesn't have any violence over you. You understand? He's not your leader in the same way that, the local gangster is the leader of, the other gangster. Did I tell you guys the experience I had where thousands of millions of years, psychopaths conquering and making the rules. Forecast said of thousands of millions of years, it was psychopaths conquering. Not even psychopaths though. It's just science. It's just science. It's like the dog is acting up. You slap the dog. All of a sudden, he's your best friend. Why? You might be like, well, I just feed him. No, it's not because you feed him, because you slapped him. You know what I'm saying? It's because you slapped him. What I'm saying is this, and I'm not like praising violence per se, but what I'm saying is that, and I'm not even not praising violence. It's just a matter of that. Let's see. Forecast says even in the Bible they were told to take people by force. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. Now, what I'm saying is that at the time I met this gangster, right? So there's this book. There's this black man who writes a book like How to Make a Revolutionary Army or something like that. Something crazy like that, right? So I read the book, and he had this quote where he was like, if you want to organize in a community, you should talk to everybody in the community, You should even introduce yourself to the local gangsters and blah, 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 right? And so I loaned this book to, like I said, I was doing regular meetings, so I loaned it to one of the brothers who was in the meeting the longest, okay? And yeah, that was it. I loaned it to him. He reads it. He appreciates it. He gives it back to me. Whatever, right? Fast forward. One day, we're like doing some meeting, and then there's this other brother comes. And this brother was actually pretty interesting because this was before Trump won the election, and he was telling me he liked Trump, and he thinks Trump's going to win the election. This was like the first time he ran against Hillary, and I was like, you sound crazy. Like I was starting to be a little rude with the guy, like, you sound crazy, man. Trump ain't going to win no election, and blah, blah, blah. You got to read more books, you know how you talk to brothers who don't read enough books. Anyway, we talking to each other, and every once in a while we're talking, I would see this young, not young kids, but like maybe like 18, 17, 16-year-old, right? Riding by in a bicycle. Because he sees me talking to, he's looking at me talking to this dude, kind of sunning him in my conversation, but not too much, but a little bit, like a little bit, arrogant, how I was, right? And he's looking back at the guy on the bicycle like, no worries, right? I'm like, yeah, who's that guy? He's like, I don't know, don't worry about it, right? And then I say, but the dude sounds a little knowledgeable. So I say, what do you do around here, man? He's like, I just run a fraternity around here. And I say, a fraternity around here? Because we in the hood. Matter of fact, we in Brownsville, okay? This is like the hood, And I'm like, a fraternity around here? That's interesting, man. I didn't even know there was fraternities around here. That's power, man. Respect to you, right? And the guy I introduced the book, the guy who introduced us, he's laughing his ass off. And so later on, the dude leaves, and I'm like, what was so funny? Why do you keep laughing when he said his fraternity? He's like, that dude's the leader of the local gang here. You understand? He's the leader of the local gang. And I told his brother, I said, look, man, next time you introduce me to some gangsters, at least tell me, warn me about it. He's like, no, I was just trying to see how you were that. It's like, motherfucker, man. But you got to understand, while we were there, he was showing, hey, look, I'm a master organizer. Okay? And the thing I organized is Men in Steel. And because of the Men in Steel, the men, these boys, now look, these are not industrial leaders, but these boys have bread and money. Okay, these boys have bread and money. He has bread and money. Why? Because he organizes Men in Steel. That's all it is. And if you look at the presidency, the president of the United States organizes Men in Steel. That's what the military is. And if you look at the mayor, they organize men in steel. That's what the police do. And the police organize the freaking gangbangers, the gangsters. Okay? It always comes back to that. So the reason why you don't have these leaders is because you don't have the right to violence unless you ask the white man. Okay? But not and look, I'm just saying that because I know I'm talking to Westerners. But unless you ask the state, you don't have the right to violence. Okay? Unless you're a part of the state or you have state permission, you don't have the right to violence. And so the leadership that you have in your life is the state. And I'm going to make that, as objective as possible. But in so doing, you realize, hey, these guys who are sitting in front of you and talking, they are not your leaders. And a lot of times, because when I used to organize with Alton H. Maddox, he would tell us, a lot of times you got the HNIC, okay, the head Negro in charge. And who was that? And what was their job? And they were saying, hey, look, if black folk were starting to get agitated, right? Starting to want to do political action or something like that, some HNIC, some black man would be hired, and Al Sharpton would come along and say, you got to go and vote. You got to go and do this. You got to go and do that. Basically, and this is how to summarize it, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. If black people have the idea of being violent, the state comes along and sends somebody to say, do not be violent. And then that individual gets paid off. And that's what you're going through. These are not leaders. These are instruments of the state. Even the religion is instrument of the state to keep you thinking about nonviolence. And you think about this nonviolence based off of, even Christianity, Islam, both of them say, hey, we are religions of peace. And if you study them, it's worship. It's saying to you how to be violent, how to win wars. Okay? Right? I remember I was sitting down with this brother, he was telling me he was a Muslim, right? And he was like, hey, Muhammad won a 1 versus 2 by doing the divide and conquer, by doing the setting the two against each other and then taking them both over. He was doing military campaigns and winning. Okay? And it's described in the book. Now, I didn't read the book. But what I'm saying is that people are reading it and they're realizing, hey, look, they're talking about how to win wars. When you talk about the Jewish faith, Judaism or whatever, right? You're talking about a people who are nomadic shepherds who say, hey, look, we took over these other people's land and we're going to treat everybody else like shit. Gentiles like shit. Okay? We're going to sell them rotting meat. Rotting meat. Okay? We're going to sell them rotting meat. It's okay. We just don't sell it to ourselves. Right? That's worship. That's war. Okay? And they bind themselves and they teach themselves, hey, we have to have a code of conduct that tells us that the other man is our enemy. Right? But at the same time, at least Christianity and Islam, they're telling them, hey, well, we're a peaceful religion. We're about peace. You see? We're about nonviolence. And it confuses, African people who are not reading between the lines. When a man takes over half of he takes over the Middle East violently, he's not about nonviolence. You understand? No man is about nonviolence. Oh, you shouldn't be a man who's about nonviolence. Let's put it that way. Okay, you shouldn't be. We got some more comments from Forecast. It says, excellent, Alfax, excellent sermon. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. Pass the ammunition. That's what they said. right? But this is why I want to say Carter G. Woodson, because this is where I got a little confused. I was saying, hey, look, we want workers. No, we want leaders. But we're not going to be our own leaders if we can't be violent with each other. That's why I tell you guys, I like Carlos A. Cook's. If you guys don't know, I have a copy of Carlos A. Cook's book. If you look at that thing I was just showing you guys, Carlos A. Cook's there. He was like, hey, if you really want to set black folks straight, you got to talk about the Lead Pipe Brigade. Okay? And matter of fact, shout out to the revolutionary matron. Our matron, she read the book online. So if you want to listen to that book, you could just look at her page and you could look at, that book. Read it from cover to cover. Right? But the whole thing is that he's like, hey, if you really want to get black folks straight, you got to do the Lead Pipe Brigade. Lead Pipe Brigade, I wish I could pull up this thing. I can't pull up anything, man. I didn't realize. But the Lead Pipe Brigade basically means that if, you go and give black folk a warning, by black, and if they don't listen, on the third time, you come around with a lead pipe and you beat the shit out of them. Okay, you beat the shit out of them. And then sure enough, they will be convinced, he says, maybe we should be buying black. You know what I'm saying? And he's right. But the problem is this. You go around beating black folk with lead pipes, you will probably go to prison. Okay? That's the problem. And why would you go to prison? Because the state doesn't agree with you. Now, if the state agreed with you, like for instance, if you were in a Pan-African country, okay? If you were in a Pan-African country or a black nationalist country or a country ruled by, yeah, you could go around beating people for shopping with foreigners. Okay, you can even beat the foreigners. You can kick the foreigners out. Right? But you're not. And because you're not, that's where all the problems lie. Honestly. And I mean, I know people are like, hey, man, but look, I probably would have the same problem. You wouldn't have the same problems. You can't possibly have the same problems. It's like me, if I want to, I can't even buy from foreigners. Like, I don't even see foreigners. Like, I mean, obviously, if I go very, very, very far from my house, I want to say like an hour's ride, sure, I could find some foreigners. But like locally, no. You're not going to find foreigners. You know what I mean? You're just not going to. You know what I mean? Anyway. He says, if you are not in an organization, you're not united with your brothers and sisters. Now, again, remember this. We're all in an organization. We are all in an organization. That is the nation that we live in. Okay? Now, Kwame Ture is trying to reason with you, hey, look, be a part of an organization. And then, because I remember, like, that same brother I told you about who introduced me to gangster and all that kind of stuff, he was asking me a long time ago, he says, how can an organization protect you from police violence? And I thought about it at the time, and I gave a bad answer. I was like, hey, look, if you are really organized, you could escape if the police are coming after you. Right? Like, if you're at, location XYZ, then, you can talk to so on and so forth, and you could avoid them, right? That's a possibility. But, so you would benefit in that respect, but like realistically speaking, you know what I mean? Realistically speaking, if you're in another man's nation and they don't like you, they can do all sorts of shit. They could freeze your bank account. They can refuse you employment. They can arrest you on site. They can, they can do all sorts of shit. They can close down your neighborhood. They could, they can turn the people against you. They can put up signs saying you're wanted for this and, give other people an option to, there's a whole host of problems that come along with you being in a hostile nation. I'll just put it that way. So anyway, we got this one before, we read this one. If a crocodile eats their own eggs, what would they do to the flesh of a frog, right? We have another quote from, this is the African Blood Studies Quartet, so that's me, right? The leadership must answer, how is that the North Star? Otherwise, it's misleadership. So the North Star, for you guys don't know for some reason. I mean, no, you don't have to know because it's kind of really particular to America. But in America, during the enslavement of African people, a lot of people use the North Star, in order to find where north was and travel there in order to get out of the South, in a sense, get out of where the slavery was being concentrated, right? So the idea here is that if you're a leader, you should be able to answer, how is it the North Star, right? Or you're a misleader, right? And again, this is not even, I don't even like this quote anymore, because I want to stress, and I keep saying it, leadership is about violence, okay? Leadership says, what is the consequence? It's like with my kids, right? One thing, my thing is that I'm still kind of soft when it comes to, the fairer sex, okay? But with the boys, I'm not that soft. And so with the boys, I'm a little bit, oh no, like you just did something I don't approve of. You are going to, you're going to understand you don't do that. You understand? You're going to come to an understanding that you don't do that. That's how I do it. Now, of course, you might be like, hey, you're just bullying little kids. Okay, sure. But you have to understand too, right? That's life. Life is about, again, you go back to this violent situation. Who are you supposed to use violence against? Against people you're going to win against. That's what people use violence against. People they're going to win against. This is the whole reason why, they said, no matter what happens, we have got the Maxim gun and they have not. Because white folk are saying to themselves, hey, look, we're not trying to fight white people with nuclear weapons. We don't want to fight black people with machine guns. Okay? We want to fight black people with spears. All right? And that's it. The story about the Maxim gun is really, 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 really crucial. It's really, really critical for you to understand how the world is, right? Because again, it goes back to the quote. This is a quote from white folk. Really good quote. It says, war does not determine who is right. War determines who is left. So there is a battle. I think it's the Songhai Empire. Okay? I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's the Songhai Empire. And let me see. There's a really critical battle. Okay? That was just shocking to the world. Right? Let me see if I can. I want to find it because it was just it was probably the most important battle in human history. Yeah, I think this is it. It was, maybe it's the Battle of Ptah Htp. I don't know, but I'm gonna show you guys this page. It's probably I shouldn't say human history, but it's a really, really important battle, right? I don't know if this is the right page. I just kind of look up Songhai Empire defeated in battle, 1583. I don't know. Well, I don't know. 1591. I thought. Yeah, 1591. So I think this is the battle, right? Basically, it goes like this. Songhai Empire is this force. It was the powerhouse of West Africa. Or it was a powerhouse of West Africa. It had this massive cavalry. Look at this. 18,000 cavalry. 9,700 foot soldiers, right? That kind of stuff, right? In any case, they outnumbered their opponent, had a powerful cavalry, but the Moroccans apparently, and I thought it was Europeans, but whomever, right? They win. And they win with 1,500 people, right? 1,500, 6 cannons. And they take over 30,000, 18,000, that kind of number of people. And it just changed the course of human history. Because it said, hey, look, the way of, because before this, Songhai Empire, Africans were up there. It was like, you can't fight them. If you have, let's say you have 20,000 cavalry and 50,000 infantry, you might not walk away beating these guys. Okay, because they have a really effective cavalry. They really, they have, Muhammad Ali's, what I mean? On horseback. Okay, they have some good ass fighters, good ass warriors, but without the technology, and this is where we get set back. After this 1591, these white folks say, oh. Okay? They say, oh, okay. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, 1591, I gotta look that up. I think 1591 is also the year of the European expansion into America, right? Or 1590 something, right? I gotta double check that. But let me see that though. Let me see that. That was like 1592. Columbus sailed the ocean blue or something like that. Let me see what year Columbus was. 1592. 1492. Okay. Well, I don't know. Let me see. Maybe it's 1492. Columbus. What year? It could be 1492. I just remember it rhymed with two. Columbus year. 1492. So he's 1492. So it's 100 years. But basically, what I'm saying is that when you can take over one of the most powerful militaries on the planet with just a handful of guys, with just 6 cannons, right? Yeah, you're in a new era, and those people who are not in that new era are making an error. Okay, those people who are not trying to, and this is a thing that's happening to us today. Like I said, I don't know much about it. And that's me being ironic. But there's this brother who's talking about, hey man, look, these white people are developing a new weapon in front of our faces. Artificial intelligence. It's a new weapon in front of our faces. They're developing a new weapon in front of our faces. Okay? We're helping them develop a new weapon right in front of our faces. And it's going to be a weapon and what I'm saying is that warfare, you hope that your battle is asymmetrical. Okay? You hope that your battle is asymmetrical. Okay? You don't want, so when I say, hey, yeah, I slapped my kid, right? I mean, I don't say that, you know what I mean? But, because again, like I said, someone's going to come slap me, right? That's violence, right? But what I'm saying is, when I say that, you might say, hey, man, yeah, but would you slap an adult? What the fuck am I fighting? Why the hell am I slapping an adult? You know what I mean? If I'm going to slap an adult one-on-one, it depends on who the adult is, right? There's not too many kids that, there are a handful of kids that can knock me down, but there's not that many. You know what I mean? I know my kids, they can't knock me down. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But yeah, a grown man. Look, I'm not saying I can't throw down with a grown man. It's just a matter of, is the lesson going to be made? Is the lesson going to be made? I'm not saying I can't. I'm just saying. All right. So anyway, he says organization advantages. So again, leadership is not about you do want the right direction. We want that. But the reality is you don't have leadership if nobody's see my kids, I'm their leader. Why? Because I'm the one who has the legal right, the protected right to slap them. That's why I'm their leader. You understand? That's why you're not their leader. You don't have that protected right to slap them. You could, but that's only if you think I'm not gonna do anything about it. That's only if you want to put violence on me. You know what I mean? like that's really the only damn way, right? Yeah, you know it too. That's really the only damn way. Because organization advantages membership, otherwise it's misorganization. So again, you will organize and you will get advantages from your organization. You're in a nation, you get advantages from that nation. You might not see it, but you're in America, or if you're in America, you get the right to work, you get the right to vote. You get advantages for being American. Just the same as people in Tanzania get advantages for being Tanzanian, you know. But again, if you have an organization, and I think I put this quote because the Black Panther Party, I think I met Fred Hampton Jr. Fred Hampton Jr. and he was telling us that Fred Hampton would not have, like, he would go and feed kids for the Black Panther Party, right? And then when he comes home, he didn't have any food for his children, you know. Again, that's not how you organize. You're supposed to organize and try to benefit yourself. But he goes, we're going to continue. And I don't know if we actually left the original question. I think the original question was about how can private individuals, you know, I may probably to go back to it another day. But he says, whoever is more vigilant in observing the designs of the enemy in war and endures much hardship in training his army will incur fewer dangers and can have greater hope for victory. So again, sometimes I just have the general rules of warfare. Like I try to keep everything African, but I said, look, let me guys know. He says, never lead your soldiers into an engagement unless you are assured of their courage, know they are without fear, and are organized, and never make an attempt unless you see they hope for victory. So again, this is what I talk about, the asymmetrical. You know, if you want to be a good general, or you want to be good at war, or you want to be good at life, never make an attempt unless you see hope for victory. Okay? Never make an attempt unless you see hope for victory. You know, victory is not guaranteed, victory is not sure. Victory is a probabilistic thing. But that's the whole thing about asymmetrical warfare. Okay? That's the whole thing about asymmetrical warfare. The 1,500 guys who took over the powerful Songhai Empire, right? They would be terrified of 30,000 cavalrymen. Like, these cavalry were legendary, you know, wreaking havoc all across whatever. They took them down with just firearms because they said, look, we believe we can win. Now, of course, the Songhai believed they could win too because they were the dominable, fearless, but they were outdated. And that's how we are right now, because I'll tell you guys, this is the interesting thing. A lot of us would lose to the Songhai Empire today. Okay? These white boys took out the Songhai Empire 400 years ago. Okay? We're technically 400 years behind. Okay? Especially if you consider what we ourselves personally manufactured, we're technically 400 years behind. Okay? And that's the problem. We got another one. Forecast says, so what do you think about Shaka Zulu? A hero or tyrant? Is there a difference? So yeah, you know, like you said, Shaka Zulu, that's an interesting thing, because I think in this book, the Pan-African Compendium, I call him a psychopath. You know, like I said, this guy's a psychopath, right? And I mean, again, we are so tuned to being nonviolent that we don't realize, right, that violence runs the world everywhere we are. You know what I mean? Like we're so disassociated from reality that it's like reality's in your face. You know, like I told you guys, the first time I went to Ghana, I came back and it dawned on me that I was in a police state when I was in New York City. I was in a police state. Like there were like maybe 6 overseers going on the train right next to me, and I just had to sit there and shut the fuck up. Okay? I'm a grown damn man. And I had to sit there and just shut the fuck up. I don't know what these guys were doing. It didn't matter. Okay? I'm in a police state. So, you know, yeah, the question about, you know, Shaka Zulu, you know, it really comes down to, but again, we don't know what the real story of Shaka Zulu is because, you know, from what I could, you know, the only thing I know is that document, that movie, and, you know, like a lot of white historical documents. Shaka Zulu, actually in some respects, what Shaka Zulu was doing was kind of, hey, these white people have possessed some good weaponry. Let's try to get a hand of that. Let's try to get a hold of the weaponry. But the white folk, I told you, they had a conspiracy. Okay, they had a conspiracy. So like, this is why, like I said, I appreciate, or I look at Judaism and Christianity and Islam, the Abrahamic religions, and I see how they understand the other man as their enemy. And that is a really potent thing. I don't know the story of Shaka Zulu, but it seems like Shaka Zulu did not see the other man as his enemy. He saw the other man as an opportunity, and the other man wasn't an opportunity. Now, how can we possibly get to the mindset of the Abrahamic, where we look at other people as our enemy? I don't know. Okay? I don't know. I mean, you could say, hey, write a book, and the people read it, people adapt it. I wrote a book. Like you're talking to an author. Like we're reading my book. Like we're reading one of my books right now. So it's like, because we can't, like I can't judge Shaka Zulu. Like I can't judge him because it's kind of like the critique that Booker T. Washington was met with. No, not Booker T. Washington. W.B. Du Bois. His aunt would tell him, you can't judge Booker T. Washington because you never got hit by a whip. If I watched the Battle of, whatever that was, the battle. Let me see. If I was in 1592 and I watched the Battle of Ptah Htp, right? I might say, okay, white man, show me how you made that cannon. I might say that. Now again, in 2025, I might be like, this white man's not gonna show me how to make a cannon. But in 1592, seeing Moroccans with the cannon, yeah, I might be like, hey, white man, show me how to make a cannon. You know what I mean? Like I can't judge the guy. Kofi says, I don't know much about him as well. Yeah, it's like what do you do? Like, I mean, I heard that he would be like, yo, you can't have sex unless you kill a man, like you kill another man, right? Which is like, shit, man, I don't know if I'll tell a brother you can't have sex, you know what I'm saying? But, it's like how other people fight for survival. You know what I mean? Like I don't judge other people for going through what they're doing. Like, for instance, like you look at me, like I tell you guys, hey, go repatriate, go to Africa. Africa's great. And I have a good life here in Africa. But like, in another light, you could say, hey, Oni, you ran away. You know what I mean? Like Rhoda, you ran away. You had a pretty good life in America too. You know what I mean? Like, for what it's worth. And you ran away. And sometimes it is a little hard. It is a little hard, one of the disadvantages of, when people tell you this, but one of the disadvantages of leaving your country or the country that you were in, is that you really do lose your family. You get what I'm saying? You really do lose your family. So it's like, it's not like everything has a cost. Everything has a cost. And there's nothing that's perfect. So, Shaka Zulu, he fought against white folk, he fought against black folk, and he fought to be, the leader of a community. And again, how do you get that leadership? From violence? Yeah. He fought to be the leader. And that's it. Now, did he have some habits that, some of us would be like, why do you have that habit? Absolutely. But that's the reality, is that anybody can be critical of anybody. You know what I mean? If the guy who wrote Pro-Black Compendium met the guy who wrote Uangalifu, and of course it's the same person, right? But yeah, he might have opinions on the guy, like how I have opinions on my older writing. He might have opinions on me. You know what I mean? But it's like, who cares? In the sense of, if the objective is we want to move forward. You know what I'm saying? The objective is that we want to move forward and we want Africa to be in a better condition, be in a better position, right? And so we have this next quote, which is, "An army without good planning is conquered with one club." And this is what's like bring up Shaka Zulu right here, right? He says, "An army without good planning is conquered with one club." What we have to realize about Shaka Zulu is this: Shaka Zulu took over the Zulu people, or the people who were prior to the Zulu people. He created a new people. He created the Zulu people because he had good planning. And so he conquered them with one club. So it's the reality that if Shaka could have done it, right? Anybody could have done it. You understand? And this is why the European could do what the European did. Anybody could have done it. You could have done it. You could do it. You just have to have better plans than the next man. But you see, Shaka came with plans. Wazungu came with plans. You understand? This is why Wazungu could take us over. He came with good plans. Sorry, I think I read that wrong. But it says, "An army without good planning is conquered with one club." The thing that Shaka is famous for is looking at how the Zulu are fighting. And say, not the Zulu, but the people before the Zulu, right? Looking at how they were fighting and saying, "You're not gonna fucking win with this. This is bad fighting. This is bad martial arts. If you want to fight, you gotta fight like this." That's what he's famous for. Because and basically he was doing what white people did with guns, with spears. Okay? Asagais, right? If you want to be technical, he was doing what white people were doing with guns, with spears, because black people could have been conquered by spears. Okay? Black people could have been conquered by spears. That's what he's showing. He's saying an army without good planning is conquered with one club. With one club. So it's like, yeah, Shaka was just the guy who said, "Hey, you know what?" Anyway, let's see something. It says, Forecast says, "That's very true. I'm like 5 minutes behind, but that's a very good point. We don't really know." Yeah, we don't really know. I mean, we know what the white man told. Because here's the thing, dude. The white guy who showed up, and who wrote that book on Shaka Zulu, he had a Zulu wife. Oh, he had like 4 Zulu wives. Okay? So, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the fuck was going on. You know what I'm saying? like the real story is that this dude goes in and gets 4 damn wives. And he has a wife back in Europe. So it seems like somebody was like, "Hey, you want some of this, pum pum." Okay, so I don't know. Like, they tell us, "Hey man, this guy was just killing people left and right. He wasn't giving nobody no pum pum," something like that. So why in the world this dude got so much pum pum? That's what I want to figure out. So it's like, that's what I'm not getting. The story, it not really adding up. It may be like made for TV drama, but it's not really adding up. Let me see if I can find. I think it's Flynn. Yeah, Henry Francis Finn. So this guy was in the story, one of the first Europeans to make contact with King Shaka, right? Or among the most famous of South Africa's so-called white chiefs. Like, this guy becomes a chief. So, personal life, his great wife was the Zulu princess, Princess Uangalifu. She is said to have succeeded to his chieftaincy upon his death. Friend's son by junior wife, also named this, attended college. Took 4 African wives with whom he had 12 children. So, and this guy already had a wife before he came to, you know, South Africa or whatever, right? So it's like, yeah, you know, I have no effing idea what happened. You know what I'm saying? like, I don't know why. If this, like, if Shaka was, you know, killing black folk left and right and killing white folk left and right, then how this white, and you know, they didn't like white folk, they didn't like, well, I don't know, or he wasn't giving nobody no pom pom. Why does this white boy come out of nowhere and get 4 damn wives and have 12 damn children with them? You know, I don't know. Cause I tell you this right now, I go a lot of places, I'm not walking away with 4 damn wives. Okay? You know, like this dude was living the high life somehow. And yeah, the story don't add up. So, you know, we don't know. You know what I'm saying? like, I can't say, like, I mean, for me, this looks sus. Okay? This looks sus. I don't know what this guy was doing, but this looks sus. Okay? Me personally, if you're a white boy, you come to my country, you probably not going to walk away with no damn. We probably not going to have no pom-pom. Okay? You probably, whatever it is that you coming there to do, you probably going to go do that, and then you going to go home. You know what I mean? You know, I don't know nothing about no, oh yeah, you going to walk away with 4 of my damn women, and you out of your damn mind. They got to be like some bruck up women or something. You know, but he said one of them was the princess. You know what I mean? So I don't know what a princess is at that point. Like, I'm trying to figure out, are you Shaka's daughter? You know what I'm saying? Like who the fuck is, how are you a Zulu princess? Like, didn't he create the Zulus? Like, what's going on? You know? I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Anyway, we're going to go back to the breeding though. So he says, by the way, you could put, I mean, I know I speak fast, but if you're behind on time, you can fast forward. Like, put it at 2 times speed, and then you will recover all the time. Like, you're 5 minutes behind, in 5 minutes you'll be catch up. You know, you'll catch up. So he says, if one tries to navigate unknown waters, one runs the risk of shipwreck. You know, again, this is about politics, but we're going to skip over that. He says, Joseph Ben-Yakinen says, the fact is we, all of us here, Africans all, have been forced to live and perform at the bottom of the socio-political stratum of European, British, European, American, and Asian societies for the last 1,346 years. So again, I'm saying this. You're not forced to live and perform at the bottom of the socio-political stratum of Europeans. Okay? You're not. Anymore. Maybe you could say, I don't know when Ben Yakinen wrote this, I wouldn't say that either, but maybe you could say, you could say during American slavery, like not just American slavery, but during the enslavement period, yes, you were forced, some of us were forced to live and perform at the bottom of the socio-political stratum, right? You want to say colonization? I don't think you were forced to live and perform at the bottom of the socio-political stratum. I don't think all of us were. I think it was, if you were in the city, for whatever reason, you know, if you were in the city, yeah, you'd be on the bottom of there, because it's their city. You understand? It's their city. You know? And that's just how it is. It's like, if I set up a colony in China, okay? Hopefully, if I set up a colony for black people in China, hopefully the Chinese person is on the bottom of that community. Now, of course, the Chinese are not going to let me set up no damn colony in the middle of China, right? Because they got self-respect. But somehow, or they set up some city for Chinese people, or for black people in the middle of China. But somehow that's what happened to us. And then black people came, unfortunately, like, I don't want to be, you know, I'm not hating on black folk, but black people came hand in hand. You know, if you, and I think it was Frederick Douglass who might have had a quote about black folk with hat in hand. You know, I don't know. Let me just double check. I might not be in this book though, because you know I wasn't really trying to say Frederick Douglass back in the day. Oh, this is it right here. I think it's this one right here. Maybe. He says, "Look, it is vain that we talk of being men if we do not do the work of men. We must become valuable to society in other departments of industry than those servile ones from which we are rapidly being excluded." He's like, look, you are being excluded from even the servile roles. They don't need dishwashers, they have dishwashers. They don't need clothes washers, they have clothes washers. You know what I'm saying? Like they have the technology. We must show that we can do as well as they. When we can build as well as live in houses, when we can make as well as wear shoes, when we can produce as well as consume wheat, corn, and rye, then we shall become valuable to society. You know, you got to realize this. When another man sets up a society, sets up a city, okay, if they do the right city planning, or even if they don't start out doing the right city planning, if they at some point get together a city or a colony that's working and functional, guess what? They have their own valuable members. Okay? Basically, when you go to set up a colony, what are you doing? You are building houses. You are making shoes. You are producing wheat, corn, and rye. And then you show up hat in hand, right? And you say, can I live in one of those houses? Can I wear some of those shoes? Can I eat some of that wheat, corn, and rye? And there's nothing wrong with that. Except that this man, right? This other man is looking at you like with two eyes. You know what I mean? He's looking at you with two eyes. I'll put it that way. Okay, he's looking at you with two eyes. Right? You can't just talk about being men. You have to be them. Now again, I just keep skipping through. This is a really good. Oh, this is a conflict resolution. Okay, this is a really good. Like I said, this was like sometimes I don't like my older books. But even though I don't like them, you know, and I don't promote them. I don't tell you guys go buy this. I tell you go buy Uangalifu. Uangalifu is better than this book, right? But even so, these books have value. You know, they have value. Even if they're not like perfect, they have value. Let me see what the comments are. Forecast says, very good point. You right. We can't judge. You gave me a new perspective on it. Yeah, I appreciate it. Boy, Africa's a waste sometimes. Kobe says, boy, Africa's a waste sometimes. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you know, how you gonna judge it? But like, you know, like if, you know, like I said, if you were 1592, you just watched, you know, again, Saga Empire probably could have been considered one of the world's greatest militaries at the time. Okay, like you just saw it get defeated by 1,500 dudes. Come on, man. Like shit. You know, your whole perspective is warped, right? Because you just like, or if you heard like Saga Empire, you know, one of the biggest empires in Africa, right? In African history, okay, one of the biggest empires on the planet, honestly. Right? Because it's, you know, it's big in Africa. It's just big, right? And you hear that it was defeated by like 1,500 people, okay? And you know, you could be in the Middle East. You could be like, because what happens? The Europeans heard this, okay? And the reason why we know the Europeans heard this, let me see. Mansa Musa. Let me see what year he was. Mansa Musa was 1330. Yeah, he died in 1337. So. What a lot of us don't know is that Mansa Musa, right? So this is a dude, you know, you guys know this is all about, he has a lot of gold, okay? And so there's this famous picture of him, and you got to just say to yourself, where is this picture from, right? So there's this famous picture of Mansa Musa right here, right? This picture. But you got to ask yourself, where is this picture from, okay? So it's a very famous picture, and actually right here, it says, it's from the 14th century, from the 1375 Catalian Atlas. Okay? So the Catalian Atlas, let's just click on it, is a medieval world map or map of Mundi, probably created in 13th and so forth, has been described as the most important map of the Middle Ages in the Catalan language as a zenith of medieval map work. So again, this is considered the most, now again, I never read this before, right? A Jewish book, right? Illuminator. Produced by a Cairo school, possibly by a Jewish book, was described as a contemporary of the master of Mappa as well as... All right, my point is this, though. This is considered the most important map of the Middle Ages. And you open up the map, I don't know if this is the same. I don't know if this is it. But, yeah, you open up the map, and you zoom in on Africa, okay? You zoom in on Africa, okay? You open up the map, it's loading, right? And you zoom in on Africa, and there's this guy sitting down holding gold. Okay, so the most important map in the Middle Ages, or whatever, what did they say? I don't remember what it said, but middle history or something like that, medieval history, right? The most important map in medieval history shows you where West Africa is and says, these motherfuckers got gold. Okay? I don't know what this translates to. I see the word Negro right here. I don't know what this translates to, but it probably translates into this motherfucker has gold. Okay? That's how wealthy. So after this guy's empire, I forget where Mansa Musa is from. What's his name of his kingdom? I can't remember what. Sometimes you get the Mali Empire. After the Mali Empire, Songhai Empire. Songhai Empire is more badass. I don't know if it's more rich, but probably more rich than this guy who makes it on the freaking map. Okay, some people even say this might be the richest person in human history, or one of the richest before, this modern age of, these super billionaire tech guys, right? But like basically the richest guy in human history for a long, long time, right? The empire that follows him, the stronger empire, gets obliterated by 1,500 dudes. Okay? You're over here, you hear about that. Okay? You're over here, you hear, oh, holy shit, what? This guy we need that technology. We need that technology. We need that technology. We need that technology. We need the technology that could take down these people. And they got it. They had it, they got it. Right? And so, yeah, you go to Shaka Zulu who's giving these white boys some he's probably giving these white boys some women pum because he's like, hey, give me the technology that can mow down human beings. Give me the technology that levels the play. That doesn't level the playing field. That makes the playing field uneven. Bit of Medicine Podcast says, Molly, yeah, it's so hard to remember things these days, man. I'm just getting slower and slower. All right, let's try to finish this thing. So we go to some Oni quotes. Nice. So it said, black people are studied by whites is undeniable. If you want to learn a fact about black people, the quickest means is, unfortunately, going to whites. And this is the thing. I shouldn't even say a fact, but this is the same thing with regards to Shaka Zulu. You want to learn about Shaka Zulu? Or how do we learn about Shaka Zulu in the West? Do we go to the Zulu people? No. We don't go to the Zulus, man. We go to the library and we figure out, what did this guy Finn say? What did this guy Henry Francis Finn say? Okay? What did Henry Francis Finn say? That's really it. And Henry Francis Finn took 4 African wives and had 12 children, and one of his wives was a Zulu princess. And this is the authority on... Oh, yeah, look at this right here. Matter of fact. Several years after his return to the Cape in 14, he married a European woman whom he had a son, Henry Francis Finn Jr. So again, he already had a Henry Francis Finn, right? He gave the European kid his name. And I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad at him, okay? What I'm saying, and I'm not even disappointed that the dude left the country, left his children and shit behind. What I'm saying is, because I thought he had a wife before, but no, he had a wife after, right? What I'm saying is, this is the guy, this is the authority on Shaka Zulu. Right? So when we talk about Shaka Zulu, we're talking about what this guy thought. And what this guy thought or did was 4 women, 4 of your mothers, at the same time, had 12 children whose bloodline is probably still in South Africa, right? And after he did that, after he had his fun, he went and married a white woman in Europe. And no, as a matter of fact, not even Europe, in South Africa. Okay? in South Africa. So, yeah. So, I mean, again, I don't, and again, all he did was tell you, oh man, Shaka was so violent, man, you wouldn't believe. Okay? That's all he told you. And it's like, well, I mean, I don't know how violent the motherfucker is if he letting you sleep with 4 women and leave their 12 kids. Like, shit, boy. Yeah, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I do not know if the story you told me about this man is all that true. That's all I'm gonna say. Kofi says, first time seeing the source for this image. Yeah, man, but that's a famous ass image. It's legit. It's legit the biggest map of the 14th century, and it just has a rich ass black man on it. In fact, if I'm not even mistaken, it's like the only black man here, right? So you got to realize that these white folk are like looking at this map and they're like, oh, there are black men with gold. Pretty damn close too. Cause like, look at this map. You got to say to yourself when you look at this map, where the hell is the person looking at the map? Okay, so this is, well, maybe it's not a black guy actually. I don't know who this is. Maybe an Indian guy, right? But like, you got to say to yourself, where are you on the map? Well, if you're in middle-aged Europe, you're over here. Okay, you're over here. You're in. This is Europe. This is Africa. This is the Eastern world. Okay, this is the Eastern world, and not even but you can see this is freaking far. Okay, this is probably the Middle East. This is probably India. Because I'm just guessing about an elephant, right? And maybe even these, right? So what they're saying is, hey, look, there's a rich ass black, and I mean, I don't even know what these words are. I almost feel like I should translate it at some point. You know, Aquef Fanyor Negro. Something, you know, Modali, you know, blah, 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 blah. I should probably translate this, but it probably means they got gold here. You know? There's some rich black folk. So these white folk, when they learn how to freaking swim, they come across looking for gold, looking for black men, and then also seeing, oh, they pushovers. Oh, they're pushovers. And that's where all your problems come from. Because not only do you have the thing that they want, the gold, the resources, whatever, but then you're a pushover on top of that. And again, everybody's really wants to do asymmetrical violence. They don't want symmetrical. You know, they don't want the UFC, you know, where you got 2 well-trained dudes punching at each other. They don't want that shit. Okay? They want the dude who's punching on the guy who doesn't train. That's what you want for yourself. You want to train hard, and I might have skipped over that quote a little bit, but that's what that guy was saying. I don't know if I probably skipped over it a little bit, but he says, look, where is this? Endures much hardship in training. Okay, will incur fewer dangers. He says the whole objective of picking your battles or setting up your battles is to incur fewer dangers. That means you're not sending your boys against, you're not sending one-on-one against Mike Tyson. Okay? That's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to, if you're fighting a Mike Tyson, like even like this guy was telling me, not this guy, but Ultimatus was telling me, said the Klan's policy was to always outnumber black folk 3-1. So if you're going to go and harass black folk on the street, you see 3 black folk you want to harass, at least have 9 white men. Okay? You know, and he was actually telling us that one of the problems that we have as black people is that we always looking for a fair fight. You know? You know, if you go to somebody's house, you're going to tell them, hey, man, come outside. Let's battle. Let's fight. You mean just come outside, man? You know what I'm saying? like, you know, come outside. Let's fight, you know, blah, blah, blah. You have to, you know, that's why, you know, I don't really like Biggie, okay? Especially with all his weird lyrics. But one of the songs he had was, he was talking about this thing, and they said that this was happening in Jamaica sometimes, too, recently, where somebody would set a house on fire. He will run through the front door. They will gun them down at the front door. You know? And, you know, Biggie does a rap song where he sings about that, where he's like, oh yeah, you know, blah, blah, blah. Right? But that's a real strategy. Now, of course, it's not a foolproof strategy because, you know, whoever's in the house could run out gunning. You know what I mean? And they're going to hear the bullets at the door and they're, you know, maybe, possibly, I don't know. But allegedly this happened even recently in Jamaica. But the thing is that, you know, that's the strategy that you're supposed to employ if you're really serious about, you know, killing another man. You know? Incurring fewer dangers. You know? Observing the designs of the enemy. Enduring hardship in training. Incurring fewer dangers, you have a greater hope for victory. Because again, war doesn't determine who is right. War determines who is left. War doesn't determine who is right. War determines who is left. So we're going to try to finish this document out. He says, look, in Kenya, for instance, 1 of every teenage girls have participated in prostitution with European men. In a normal nightclub, girls of 12 and 13 are publicly molested by Italians, Germans, and Swiss, among other tourists. Now again, I have no idea where this is from. This is the problem with being in, like I said, you know, this is actually like the contradiction. You know, this is from an article, obviously. This is from an article. I do not believe this article after having gone to Kenya. Okay? But it goes to show you black people are studied by whites is undeniable. If you want to learn a fact about black people, and again, it's not a fact about black people. But if you what you consider a fact about black, see, I consider this a fact when I wrote this. You know, because I read it somewhere. You know, and I saw the video of teenage girls. You know, not like literally, but you know, I saw a video of teenage girls being spoken to by Italian, German, and Swiss men. You know, it was like a documentary, all that kind of stuff. Kenya is so big. It would be very, 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 very like Kenya is so big. And Europeans are so few in number, it would be incredibly unlikely for one of every 2 teenage girls, half of the teenage girls, to be participating in prostitution with European men. Very, very, very unlikely. But when you get all your information from white folk, you understand? Now again, I like this book. Okay? I wrote this book. If you buy the book, I get money. I like it even more. Shit. But I'm telling you, there's a problem when you don't go to Africa. There's a problem when you don't go to Africa. Because you start talking about Africa like it's the place next door, and it's not. It's freaking huge. It's like being in New York City and saying, hey, 1 of every 2 teenage girls participated in prostitution. And that's possible, but again, it's just very, very unlikely. You know, it would be such a huge epidemic, you know, that it would be a little bit more self-evident. Like it would be a little more self-evident when you get there. Now, if you've never been there, you could easily say, yeah, you know, that's possible, right? But when you go there, you say to yourself, okay, maybe not 1 in every 2. You know, maybe in a certain city, maybe not even city, but like maybe in a certain city, yeah, sure. But again, it's very, very unlikely. And again, when I wrote this, it was maybe 10, 20 years ago. You know, things might be different, but yeah, no, I don't even believe this today. All right, but he goes on, says, we got Asada Shakur. You know, I was representing her. She just recently passed away. And shout out to Bit of Medicine. They were talking about it on the Bit of Medicine podcast. So make sure you guys check out everybody. Make sure you guys check out Forecast too. You know, and of course, if you guys want to talk to Kofi, I believe it. Well, I'm saying, like, when I went to Kenya, man, I'm telling you, man, there were just no white people. I mean, yeah, there were no white people. There were some areas where you could find some white people, but like generally speaking, you just had Kikuyu, you know, just Kikuyu, as far as you could see, and it was like crowded areas, you know. So it's like, Yeah, if you went by the mall that I'm talking about, I think it was like Village Market. Yeah, definitely a lot of white folk. Definitely. But like if you go to CBD, which is Central Business District, it's very, very unlikely that one of every two teenage girls there was participating in prostitution with European men. It just wouldn't even, like, these European men would be like they'd be like motherfucking friends Finn, like they're living there. Well, I mean, I shouldn't say that, but they would be very busy, because there were just a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, it was just a lot. Like, most bottom people I've seen, like, I think rush hour New York City. You know what I mean? Like, just a lot of people. Like stupid high amount of people. Like, you would have to be, like, pretty damn organized. Anyway, nobody in the world, nobody in history has ever gotten their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of the people who were oppressing them. And again, you are not going to get freedom. Like basically, I'll put it this way, in fact. You already have freedom. Or as much freedom as you're ever going to get. You're not going to have any more freedom. Okay? Now even saying that, it doesn't sound right to say that. Okay? But why I'm saying that is to say that, like, what more are you expecting to get in the West? What more are you expecting to get? That's the big question. Like, people ask me here in Africa, they're like, why did you leave America? And it's really that. It's like, where's the future? Where's the future? What is the future you have? Like, what more freedom do you want? Like, do you want to be industrial leaders? I mean, because I don't blame you if you do, but come on, how are you going to get there? Do you have the capital? We're going to keep going. It says, a strong nation has never in all its history voluntarily weakened itself by making weak races their successful rivals in the game of power. And again, it's not the game of power, it's the game of violence. A game of power is good, but you just got to make it clear. The game of violence. Nobody, look, go back in time, okay? We go back in time to that battle, okay? It's a very, very important battle, okay? The Battle of Ptah Htp, right? These guys, this 1500, had arquebuses, okay? Which is like a type of gun. You guys, a form of a gun. Like, they had these, okay? And they took over one of the most powerful military... Oh, look at the casualties and losses. These guys lost 44. These guys lost 8,000. 4,000, between 4,000 and 8,000. Okay? That. They are not going to say, hey, you know what? This fight is not fair. Grab some guns. Take some of these arquebuses and let's make it even. They don't say that. Okay? They don't say that. They say this fight is not fair. Good. And it's this, and you see, there's this brother, I don't want to say brother, but there's this guy, this historian, who says a lot of the Africans who became enslaved were descendants from the Songhai Empire. Okay? Now, I don't know how true it is or whatever, but this is what he was saying. He's like, a lot of us are descendants from the Songhai Empire. And you can even see it says, collapse of the Songhai Empire and the opening of the way to the occupation of West Africa. And then the question becomes, how does the Songhai Empire collapse? Because it lost this battle. It lost only 4,000, 8,000 citizens. How could it collapse? Because everybody's controlled by violence. Warfare runs the world. It's all in your face. Okay? I'm not saying anything new. I'm not saying anything novel. I'm not saying anything that, like, I'm making up. I'm telling you what all of your studies has been teaching you. Okay? I'm telling you what all of your studies has been teaching you, which for some reason you've been ignoring because this white boy is giving you a bunch of bullshit too.
Okay? Because he's giving you a bunch of bullshit too. He's like, hey man, look, you gotta be like Christ. You gotta be nonviolent, you know? Oh man, you gotta follow the ways of peace, you know? Buddha, you know, Mahatma Gandhi, what's his name? Martin Luther King Jr. He was telling you this stuff, okay? Because he wants you to not get a grip of the world. And the grip is, hey, you were probably a part of a very powerful kingdom at one point in time. One of the biggest kingdoms in human history. Look at this. One of the largest African empires in history. Look how big this is. Remember that Africa is already huge, right? Has other important cities in the kingdom where Timbuktu. Freaking Bugs Bunny jokes about Timbuktu. Okay, one of the most powerful centers of learning in human history. You were a part of this, most likely. Okay? And how was it taken down? By violence. And when it lost its freaking war, when it lost its battle, everything collapsed, and you ended up, you know, I don't like to use the word picking cotton because we did a lot more than just pick cotton. But you ended up picking cotton based off of this. Anyway, let's just get back to the book. I don't really. Oh yeah. So he says the next quote is this, and this is to end this section, which is, "We are the only people that expect to be protected by the goodwill of our enemies," and that's really the big summary. Okay. Kofi says not that many, but some. I don't know what that means. Fufu Tesla says, let me in the call. My girlfriend has an interesting perspective. She is from Uganda. Oh, okay, yeah, sure. All right. Is the call even on? I don't know if the call is on, but let me go put the call on. That's actually a good idea. I didn't even think about that. I'm gonna just put the call on after the presentation's over, just to think. I don't even know where the link is. So the link is in the video. I don't see it on my page. So, Uganda. All right. I actually just met some brother from Uganda. Well, I don't know if he was a brother, honestly. He was not a fan of Museveni. He was like, oh my gosh. All right, so I'm clicking the call-in link. I'm connecting. I don't know if this thing is going to. I don't know if this thing is going to go well in the recording. Okay, so Fufu Tesla's in. Let's see what happens. All right, talk to us.
Hello?
Yeah, what's going on? You said call in?
If black people are so awesome, name 3 black inventions right now. Go.
Wait, what? So, let me get this straight.
You heard me, gangster?
All right. First off, you're not even on the video, but...
Come on.
All right. So that was a little bit disturbing. It's delayed on his part, so it will take some time to read your comment. So apparently it was some guy who... some European guy who was like... I don't know. He was trying to do some, like... George Floyd thing. I don't know. It was weird. That was weird. Wait, but you see what I'm talking about. He says his girlfriend is from Uganda, and meanwhile he's like making fun of George Floyd, which is just like, yeah. All right. Anyway, so that was just, and this is the thing too. It's like, you're in this country with those people. You get what I'm saying? You're in this country with those people. They, unfortunately, when you get into a disagreement with one of them, right, the state is going to side with them. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, that was that's what happened. Dude should come troll my live tonight. Yeah, Fufu, you can go and troll forecast. Yeah, you can do that, Fufu. But we don't need your trolling here, man. It's I don't even know what you were. I don't know what you were trying to accomplish there. Anyway, but that's pretty much it. So that was that whole section on politics. Maybe another time, if you guys like, we can go over economics and the other ones another time. Oh, look at this right here. The African pays what they want and begs for Europeans for the needs. And this is Kelly Miller. But we're gonna oh, this one, I like this one. Actually, we're slaves to the cost of living. Carolina Marie Jesus. But what I'm saying is so we go to the original question about how can private individuals, right, liberate a continent. And unfortunately, this subject on politics probably wasn't super relevant. It's a good backdrop, but it goes back to like what I wanted to talk about was this idea of how you can use capital. Okay, there's capital, there's management, and there's skilled and unskilled labor, right? And what we find ourselves in a lot of times is we might have labor. We might like unskilled labor. We might have skilled labor, right? We might sometimes even have capital, but we might not necessarily have management. And so a lot of times, like if we're really serious about liberating the continent, right? We have to come to terms with the fact that we as individuals have to find a way to advance ourselves economically. Okay? We have to find a way to advance ourselves economically so that we can advance ourselves technologically. Right? But that's pretty much it, though. But anyway, that's pretty much the podcast. I'm glad that we had everybody come through. Not so much Fufu. That was a little bit disturbing, honestly. I haven't heard from white people in so long. I was just like, wait, what? People say that you can't leave these white folk, man. But let me shout out to everybody who came through. Kofi, who hit the #1 spot on comments. I think he kept it consistently. So shout out to Kofi. He says, we had Bitter Medicine podcast. You guys make sure you check out Bitter Medicine podcast. We got BBN, Black Business Network. You guys don't know, that's Brother Bakari. A good brother. Make sure you guys check him out too. You got IC3 CSI. I don't know if IC3 stayed the whole time, but I imagine they'll come back and finish it. So shout out to IC3. I know how it is. Sometimes it might be a bad time. I don't know what time it is for you guys in America. Right now it's 1 a.m. It's 1 a.m. for me. So, that's probably why I don't really do podcasts, because it's so late. It's probably why I can't listen to stuff. It's just so late when you guys go online. But forecast, shout out to forecast. Forecast was hit number 2 pretty quickly. So shout out to forecast. A lot of participation. I think that's actually it. I mean, we did have a white troll. You can go. Forecast invited you to troll, so you can go and do that. But I'm not really into that. I don't really have anything to prove. Not that forecast does. Obviously, forecast doesn't. But I don't have anything to prove with white folk. Like if you don't like black people, that's fine. You know what I mean? I don't like white people. You know what I mean? I'm not necessarily you don't like me, I don't like you. It just, again, I'm not arguing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have any sort of reason to argue. It's 1 a.m. where I'm at. I don't know. I think it's 6 p.m. for you guys. It's 1 a.m. for me. It's like, I'm not spending my 1 a.m. talking to some white boy, But anyway, that's pretty much it, though. So, appreciate everybody for sticking through. And, of course, let me show you guys my books if you're interested. The book that we were reading over was the Pro-Black Compendium, right? The Book of Power was. I thought I couldn't make a better book than the Book of Power. Then I had Uangalifu, and I think it is the best book. Like the best book, you know what I mean? Obviously, you have Zubiri in the upper right, which is the book that started the most of everything. You know, I mean, I had a book before that, but I never published it. And then you have this one, I Could Be a Nation Builder, which is just, you know, my, like, you know, a children's book, kind of a little bit of AI art, you know what I mean? Just trying my hands on it. Don't really sell too much, but, you know, it is what it is. So you guys make sure if you want to support the speaker, Bit of Medicine says good show. Appreciate it, brother. If you want to support the speaker or the host or whatever, you know, just go get yourself one of these books. Again, I mean, the Book of Power is the most expensive one, the biggest one, and it's pretty good. But again, if you want to really support, you got the Uangalifu. Okay, Uangalifu, that's my favorite one. My latest one, I don't know if I think if I write another book, it might be fiction, you know, like Zubiri, but I haven't gotten to that. Either way, appreciate you guys for your time. And of course, as always, Shem Hotep, Uncle Jas, and Neb, Amen, Ma'at, Dua, Nature.